We got a member chat from Dark King, who's been a member for 23 months at the Viking level. That's awesome, saying Disney won't care until the BlackRock money dries up, at which point the audience will be so alienated that the only way to save the company will be a takeover and a complete reboot of the entire corporation. And I don't know about reboot of the entire, well, kind of, because I also don't think that Disney is going to stop what they're doing until BlackRock stops it. Now, the beauty is that with Vanguard pulling back from ESG, to me, that's like a major domino falling, but not the big domino, because the one that's pushing all this wokeness, and remember, this wokeness is not organic. It did not come on its own. It's funded. And the ones principally behind it used to be BlackRock and Vanguard. Now it's just BlackRock. WDW Pro, do you think that Vanguard pulling out of ESG might change things now that BlackRock is standing more or less alone?
I think it begins to shift things only because I think the economy at large, it's a competitive market. It's a competitive marketplace. And so if ESG is causing you to have lower investment returns for your investors, and that begins to show up, in the paperwork over a number of years, then you begin to lose your status. And so with BlackRock, I don't know how long they will stick with this. I will tell you that on the Disney side, that they're in a precarious place because when Iger was preparing to potentially run in the Democratic primary, he moved the company significantly to the left by hiring people who were significantly to the left. And, I don't care about the politics. He can hire people who are significantly to the right. But when you hire a large number of people in a very particular direction and they're activists and they're true believers in it, then the issue there is that once they're there, you have to dislodge them because they're not going to stop what they were hired to do. And so I'll give you an example. So Disney brought in a lady named Carmen Smith, who she runs the creative side of Walt Disney Imagineering. She is fully entrenched in all of the ESG, DEI, woke culture, intersectionality stuff. And she's not going to stop being fully embraced into that. So what do? She's over it. Unless she leaves, she's going to continue hiring people who are of the same mindset. That's what she's done. And we've already begun to see a major degradation in the quality of outcomes in terms of new attractions at the Disney parks. And that's throughout the company. We also have not seen the company slow down in promoting those individuals. So when you look at the lady who was over the Proud family, Louder and Prouder, she's the one who was leaked by Christopher Rufo in the Reimagine Tomorrow videos where she talks about a not-so-secret agenda, which, how terrifying is that you would have a not-so-secret agenda in children's programming? But and we've seen the repercussions of that now, too. Well, she was promoted. So we haven't yet seen that Disney has realized this is seriously not working. Or if they have seen that, and they have, honestly, we haven't seen that Disney is ready to admit that mistake at the corporate level and fix it.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to happen until BlackRock changes their mind. Culture, script, everyone else, anyone want to chime in on that before we move on?
Well, I think there's gonna, the Disney's in a really weird leverage place. It's somewhere they haven't been. They've been getting more and more leveraged over time. Debt to income ratio over the course of like the last 5-6 years. They can't afford to fund this directly. They're going to continue to need somebody else to come in and do this. If you remember at the beginning of the global crisis, they were establishing quite the war chest. I think Pro was referring to that, headed into what they knew would be kind of an economic period of stagnation or loss.
That via Christine McCarthy.
Exactly. Yeah. And, they've gone through almost all of that. That war chest of capital is spent for the most part. So they're right now in that position where they have to save $3.5 billion, $2 billion coming out of specifically content production. This year, whether it be film or Disney Plus, but they're looking at $3.5 to $5 billion that they've got to slash up to $6 billion, like what Zaslav did over at Warner. So I look at it and I'm like, if BlackRock decides to change direction and pivot back to actual investor investor earnings rather than the equity train that they're on right now, I think that that would really substantially change the way Disney had to present itself to the outside world. Because right now they're almost unapologetically still leaning into this narrative. I mean,
while at the same time cutting everything else. They'll
Exactly.
cut everything. They'll cut their own ability to succeed before
Yeah.
they'll cut the sociocultural positions. So it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, turning this back to the animation conversation, they lost Lasseter the middle of or beginning of 2019. That's when he was officially released from his
somewhere in that region.
tenure
Yeah, we
there.
looked it up last night. I can't.
Yeah,
I think
And culture. Think about this. So you bring up a great point. This
Yeah.
came up last night. So Lasseter leaves in 2019.
Mhm.
All right. How long does it take to make an animated feature film?
3 to 5 years, easy.
Okay. Look at us now. We're in 2023. 2022 is when we first started seeing the major drop off in quality, right?
Yeah.
Turning Red, Lightyear, Strange World. It ties in directly. It's directly correlated to no Lasseter. You take
That's
out
true.
your geniuses and you'll find out you needed them quite a bit.
Well, and he was, and again, I mean, he was instrumental because Disney not only had him in charge of Pixar, they expanded his duties to include Walt Disney Animation. So he was running 2 animation studios. And you could say he was stretched thin, but every single time he made a decision, it was the right one. Like he oftentimes told animators, start again, we're going the wrong direction. That frustrated the animators, but it ended up in quality projects. So.
Yeah, that was the Pixar School of Filmmaking.
Yeah.
And we will get back to John Lasseter in a moment here. But before we do, I want to address